Just go under the driver's side of the car to drain the coolant. And if you look under here, there's usually a plastic cover here. I've already taken that off. All it is there's just a little screw. You can see it right there. Plastic screw. You do it by hand. All you do is you loosen that. You don't even have to take it all the way out. And it'll start draining, and you just let that drain out, and all the coolant will be drained for the most part from the system. There will be some a little bit left around the water pump, but that'll be fine. All right, now all I have to do is get this motor mount off, and then also there's a piece of like pipe here for the coolant to run through. We're gonna pop that off as well. I also am going to be jacking up the car a little bit. I'm sorry, the engine. And all I've done for that is I've put my jack and a piece of wood on it, and I've went to the edge of the oil pump, or of the oil pan, and I've just lightly put weight on it. I haven't done too much yet because I'm hoping the other motor mounts will hold it up enough. So just done that a little bit to hold it. If it gets worse, I will change the spot, but we should be fine, so we can dive into getting this motor mount off. All right, now we have the motor mount off. It was a little hard to get it out, and I'll show why. So what I've done so far is I've taken the motor mount out, which is this, and then this, like a supporting bracket, which was on the frame. You can see there's a hole right there. Now I don't know if this needed to be taken out, but I did take it out. I'll see if it needed to be taken out. It was just 2 bolts, so I figured I'd pull it off anyway. And then this is the motor mount. And now when it was in there, you can see that here, there's a stud right here with a nut on it. And then there was another one that was facing downwards. And this was the hardest one to get to because obviously the nut was down here, and there wasn't really an efficient way to loosen it. So I had to get it from the bottom, and I had to use a long extension. So that one was a little bit hard to get, but once I got that out, it was fine. The other thing was that I did need to jack up the engine. So all I have right now is my jack and a block of wood to make sure I'm not denting anything, holding up the edge of the oil pan. That's holding the motor right now. I did need that, so definitely do that. And I would suggest doing this one first and then doing your top bolts. That would be much easier. And it was a little hard getting the actual mount itself out, but I was able to get it out, just wiggle it out. I had to loosen, there's a bolt here that I had to take off, and there's a bolt right down here that I had to take off just to make this a little bit more loose to wiggle it out of there. But apart from that, it was fine. Now I'm gonna take this part off. I don't think there's any electronics or any switches or anything like that hooked up to it. So I'm gonna take this off now. I know we got one here. I already took a bolt out here. There's this one. I think there's one right here. And I thought there was one down here, maybe 2. So next is to pull that off. And then I might need to pull this off. We'll see. But that's what I did. Well, definitely one of the harder parts of it. But also I don't think this comes out of here. This silver part, it doesn't really look like it does. So I just left it in there. There was a bolt in here. I don't really know that you have to take that out. It made it easier to wiggle this, but that was about it. But this is a little too complicated for me, so I just pulled it out like that as assembly. Didn't want to deal with it. So we got to here, and now let's get this off. All right, we got that off. Here is what it looks like off. So we have, it usually sits on there like this. So we had the bolt on the top there, one here. We had 2 here, and there's 2 down there. I did not see this bottom one right here. I didn't see that at first. But here's what it looks like. So you got 2 bolts down there. There's 3 underneath here. And you can't forget about that top one. And that's what holds it physically to the car. But yeah, just got that off. Now I'm going to take this other piece off, and we should be able to get to the water pump from there. All right, so we got the thermostat housing off, and there is 3 bolts to take this thing off. I watched the video. He only said there was 2, and I almost destroyed this poor thing. Two of them are bolts, and one of them is a nut with a stud. You can see the stud right there. So make sure you take all three of them out. This is the top one. This is the one that I like destroyed, and that's the bottom one. So make sure you check all of those. There's 3 to take this off. Now that's just the bolts. So I took this off, which was right here. And then over there, what this is this one, which is to here. I just, undid that clip, slid it down, popped that off. And then this, which is hard, like solid in there, you can't really take this out. It pops off. It just slides right off. As long as you have that bolt off, I just kind of leveraged on both sides with a little pry bar, and it popped off pretty easily. So that was easy. Just make sure you pop that off evenly. Get that one off first, and make sure you get all 3 of those bolts. The other thing that I did, I watched one video. One guy said you need a special tool to hold this pulley. All I did is there's tension on it right now. Everything's fine. It's not moving very easy. So break these bolts loose right now before you take the tension off this belt. I don't have the tool for that. I did it. It's a 12. Pop it off with a ratchet. With a wrench. Pop it off with a wrench. Just break them loose. Do not take them out. So that's all I did. And now we're going to take the tension off, which I believe is this one. And we'll just pry that one off. Well, one of these. We'll just pry it, slip the belt off. And then we'll take this off, and then the water pump. But make sure you break these loose now. There's 4 of them. Only break them loose. That pulley does not come off. There's not enough room here to slide it off. So don't worry about sliding it off. Just break these loose. We'll take the tension off. I'll show you how I did that after I do it. We'll pop this belt off, and then we can get to the actual water pump itself. All right, I got the belt off, and the way to get the belt off, there is a idle pulley right here. This is the top one. You see this one. Then this one is the tensioner. The tensioner, the bolt sticks out a little bit more, and it's the one on the bottom. Now, it is reverse threads. So because it's reverse threads, what you do, instead of loosening it when you turn it to the left, what it actually does is it pushes the whole pulley, and that's your tensioner. So when it's on here, you hook that on, you push it, releases the tension on the belt, you take the belt off, and then you just slowly let it come back. It'll stop. You pop your wrench off. All right, we got the water pump off, as you can see, and what I did is, as I pulled every bolt off, I just put it in the same hole in the new pump to keep track of all of them. So that way I don't lose any of them. I always am afraid of losing bolts. So what we're going to do is we're going to clean all the surface of the metal here. There's still a little bit of like the seal still on there. So we're going to go through there, preferably with like a hard plastic. I know they make special tools to scrape surfaces like this. I don't have any. I do have razors, but I don't like to use them because they can scratch so easily. But I'll get down there with I'm probably just going to get a rag and wet it with the coolant and wipe it off best I can. Make sure it's a smooth surface. And then we'll get back to putting all this back together. All right, I got my surface clean of where the seal is going to be on the block. I just cleaned it with a rag and brake clean. Now, one thing that I didn't know until I looked at these bolts closely was that the longer bolts that are size 12 and they're longer like this, they had gasket maker on them. You can still see some right there. And you need to put it back on. They had gray gasket maker. I don't know if this is factory or a different water pump. The gray one that I have, it says fuel resistant. I like this one better. I'm sorry, the gray one says, fuel resistant. And this one says fluid resistant. And I use this for anything coolant related. So I use the blue Permatex for, anything coolant related. They make a red one for hot, anything that's going to be dealing with a lot of heat. And then the gray one is more towards the fuel side of it. But I use that's kind of my all-around use one. Unless I'm on something specific like this, I'll use this blue one. So just make sure that you do put some on here. Some of them had a pretty significant amount, some didn't. So I'm just gonna make sure I get some on there, because it can leak if you don't do this. Make sure you do this step. All right, so I got all the bolts on the water pump tight, and now I am putting the pulley back on. All of these bolts are torqued to 69 inch-pounds. All right, I got my pulley tight, and I'm getting ready to put the thermostat housing back on. Now, my kit did come with 2 new seals. I've got this little one, which goes right here on this pipe, and the other one was fine, but I am going to replace it anyway. And then the other one goes on the thermostat housing itself right here. So I'm going to pop this one out and then put the fresh one on. Alright, it's all done. Everything's put back together. Now all we have to do is top it off with coolant. I just ran out, so I need to get some more. But this is what I prefer to use. It is specifically for Asian vehicles, Toyota, Scion, and Lexus, it's all Toyota. That's what I would use for this. Now this is already 50-50 mix. You just pour it right in. So it's pretty easy. I think it's only like $17. Definitely get that stuff though if you're doing it on your own. So yeah, all you do is you keep this topped off. The full line, you can see it's actually just under there. So keep it topped off to that. Keep your heat running. And then once it gets up to temperature, you'll hear the fans kick on. And then you'll keep an eye on it. Make sure it stays above the low line, below the fuel line, once it gets up to temperature. And if it's low, just add some. If it's too much, it'll bleed out. But I just like to watch it to make sure it doesn't. And then check it. You know, maybe run to the store and back or something. Check it. And I would continue to check it for a few days. Make sure that, or at least a few trips, make sure that nothing is leaking, that in case you missed something or anything like that. But yeah, as far as bleeding the lines, there's not really much to it. All you have to do is just keep it running, keep it in between the low and high line, and top it off as needed. And that's it.